All right. Happy Monday as I'm recording this. Labyrinth Lord, no, sorry. Goblinoid Games dropped this, what they're calling a pre release review draft, as my chair. A pre release review draft over the weekend for Labyrinth Lord. I'm going to switch to it in a second. I'm just finishing getting it set up. Hold on. There we go. Here we go. There we go. I couldn't find too much about it. I didn't dig around too hard. Their website also could use a some kind of re-release. It says there's a little bit of text there. It says under construction, but it feels like it's about as old as Labyrinth Lord is. Labyrinth Lord, if you maybe haven't heard of it, it's one of the OGs in the OSR space, one of the original retro clones. It's still one that is recommended fairly often, especially for folks who are looking for a fairly what's the word I'm looking, kind of vanilla or um, faithful clone of I think BX is which version they're coming off of. I was really interested when I saw this because Labyrinth World I feel like it's an interesting time and space for doing this because, well, one, there's been multiple retroclones, and back in the day, there was Labyrinth Lord, and then I think it kind of got replaced a bit or usurped, just in terms of maybe the popular, I don't know, on the zeitgeist of the times. I don't go that far, but in popularity, maybe it just sort of got overshadowed by, I think, like Lamentations, the Flame Princess, and of course them and other ones. And there was also the movement towards more opinionated rules as opposed to rules that are more or less just reprints of the originals. But then, of course, Old School Essentials popped up, and it was back to being more or less a reprint of the originals. But people just loved the layout and everything so much that kind of, I think, is kind of the last great retro clone, at least of like the BX kind of basic kind of rules. So what do we want out of Labyrinth Lord in 2024? I'm not sure. I mean, there's the earlier version is there, and like I said, I think people are still pretty fond of it, though maybe folks would probably more be pointed towards something like OSE over Labyrinth Lord. And then, BX is available in digital form. Now I know that, I don't know if they have print on demand versions and whatnot, but they're, basic is I think $4, maybe a little bit more. Probably goes on sale. Expert is the same. I think you can get them digitally on drive through. So you have to, at least I have to ask myself, or I wonder about what is the place of something like Labyrinth originally. And I feel that way about OSC a little bit too, but OSC has the advantage, I think, of being maybe the de facto, this is your reference of BX. Even if you have the original BX books digitally or in print, hey, you want a reference for that stuff, use Old School Essentials. That's it. There might not be a better way to lay it out for reference than OSC already does. So if you're not going to be that, then what are you going to be? And I haven't read through this at all. I don't know, and I'm curious how they answer that question or attempt to with this. Is, hey, in this new world where the original books are available, where you have some like Old School Essentials that's kind of at the top of the heap in terms of reference, where does Labyrinth Lord fit in, or at least where does a new version of Labyrinth Lord fit in? The Roost, hey, the Roost is here. Says you can get it POD. Oh, cool. I'll have to try that because I'd love to put my poor aged copies of BX aside for something that I don't mind being meaner and ruder to. So I might have to try that. So I'm curious how they did. And I don't know if they've answered it different forms. I don't follow Goblinoid Games all over the place. Their website, it's super bare bones. I think I mentioned a couple minutes ago. It feels like it's right out of the 90s or early aughts. It's old. Oh, just expert. I see. Okay, so you still need basic, but you can get expert printed. Hopefully they'll add basic to that as well. And I would still maintain, I think, that none of the retro clones, at least that I've read, have done a better job of teaching you BX than BX. And I put out that cheat sheet last week. Sometime you can check out on itch, and really it's kind of funny. It's people have liked it, and I'm not a graphic designer by trade, so it's not not wonderfully designy in the way that some things could on a professional level, but it really is just the stuff from BX. I just tried to put it in a little bit more graphical kind of way to help hopefully make it make sense. But that stuff's all in BX. But let's see what Labyrinth Lord has. In any case, I was kind of trying to say, going back to around, is that I haven't read a bunch of stuff from them. I don't know their kind of dev docs or whatever I don't know if they've put on social media kind of what they're planning. I just saw this pop. That's all. This is all I've got. All right. And we will read the preface, assuming it's not a reprint of old preface, and it is not. So let me get to that. And I just got to have a little bit of spindrift here for the working man. Okay. So we got two prefaces, one by Daniel Proctor, one by Paulie Kidd. So the first one is, a Labyrinth Lord has been in hibernation for a while, but the old school gaming movement has continued to evolve. For many years, Labyrinth Lord filled the accurate, quote unquote, BX clone niche that was desperately needed 17 years ago, right, a long time. But from the strictest interpretation, Labyrinth Lord was never a totally accurate reproduction. That fact is the place from which I'm taking Labyrinth Lord to a new level. In 2007, when Labyrinth Lord came out, the original BX books were only available on the used market. But today you can purchase legitimate PDFs. That quote unquote need for an accurate clone has come and thankfully passed. Labyrinth Lord doesn't need to fill that niche anymore. Yeah, I can't really overstate this because I think this gets lost now. Is that when, and this is around the time that I was sort of creeping back into the old school part of the hobby, is that I had all this stuff when I was a kid. I lost all of it. I started getting it back. And when you start to get it back then, and the prices have gone up, of course, hard for the prices of this stuff to go down when there is some kind of limit on the supply, though maybe if they keep print on demanding stuff, prices will come down. Getting the books was hard. Certainly, if you wanted to get into an online game on places like Dragon's Foot or other places, I forget, there was another one, was it Unseen Servant? There's a couple other sites that I remember were doing, sort of forum-based games, and you might walk into a game and someone wants to run an old school game, wants to run something on BX, but you can't point people to go to eBay and spend, how much money to hopefully get a copy of Basic Expert. We're online, is there a PDF or whatever? Maybe there would be with kind of a funky scan. Maybe pages are missing. Who knows what kind of quality it is, whether like I said, whether it has everything in it, all this stuff. And then to be able to have something that you go to and say, well, hey, this is close enough, whatever house rules or whatever changes are made, like this is basically it. So just go get this one. I remember getting into an AD&D 1E game, and that was Osric was that, fulfilled that for that game. Hey, if you don't have the AD&D first edition books out there, go get Osric. It's the game. And like I said, I really can't emphasize how much of an issue it was back then to try to get a hold of the originals. And like it's mentioned here, that's not a problem anymore. Whatever you want to say about Wizards of the Coast, they've made this stuff available in an archival form that anybody can go get and use. So we don't need these clones anymore to do that, unless you like something about what a specific clone has done, just in terms of just to get the content of the older books into our hands. We don't need any more because we can get the original books. Labyrinth Lord has the space to breathe, to continue its trajectory of compatibility with both Basic Expert and First Edition rules, while making those rules closer to how we all played anyway. There's room to put more of myself and suggestions from all of you into the game. I see Labyrinth Lord as picking up the Basic Expert torch and continuing its growth, not pinning it down like a dusty butterfly collection. Together, we will answer the question of what might have happened to Basic Expert, or if Basic Expert grew organically on its own. So that's where Labyrinth Lord is going. Making it a quote-unquote true clone today would be going backwards. Labyrinth Lord continues forward to grow and be more than quote-unquote only Basic Expert, as it always has been anyway. I'm grateful you're on this journey with me, and I can't wait to see how we grow the game through input, third-party publishing, just gaming around the table, and sharing experiences. In my opinion, that is the heart of the OSR. Okay, so that was from Daniel Proctor. And now Paulie Kidd, who I don't know her. I've seen her content around. She pops up. She has a YouTube channel. And I know she does a lot of reviews and things like that. And I know she has a lot of involvement. I think she was present in a lot of the stuff back in the day. I see her stuff mostly through the OSR Facebook group. I think she's pretty active there. So here's her preface. Far, far back in the dim days of 1975, 12-year-old me made two marvelous discoveries: miniatures wargaming and Dungeons and Dragons. These glorious pastimes became lifelong joy and obsession. I became an author and a games designer and just never looked back. So many good new games came and went over the decades, but the love of those old first D&D sessions always remained. Clunky as they were, the vision of that original rule set created a game that had true charm. I lost touch with that great old game over the ensuing decades. We had many fab new games to explore, memorable campaigns, and fantastic adventures. But the love of that elemental quote unquote charm always stayed with me. When Dan's Labyrinth Lords and advanced, I guess a advanced Labyrinth Lord, I think it was, appeared, it was a moment of pure light. We had those good old original days back again. There I was again, edging forward down corridors with a battered set of plate mail and a trusty two-handed sword, or as a cunning thief creeping forward and checking for traps. Old, hardened ROG gamers were happily refining the joy of those game rules. It was also an opportunity to introduce new generations of players around me to the fun once again. I could give copies of the rules to my own children and take them on the type of adventures I'd had long ago. It has been a joy and honor to pitch in with the second edition of the game. The rules are clearly a work of love. Keep the dice rolling, everyone, and never underestimate the powers of a 10-foot pole. Okay. So we get some credits. The writing's by Daniel Proctor with Polykid, editing by Tim Snyder, Daniel Proctor, and Kevin Meisner. We got some stuff about art. I don't mean to underplay the significance of art and whatnot, but I'm just want to give kind of the main players who were behind the second edition in terms of the content. Okay. So there we go. We have a till, and remember, this is a draft, right? So I'm no expectations in terms of, I'm not going to worry about typos. If I stumble over them while I'm reading, that's one thing, but I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about art. I'm not worried. Really, I just want to know kind of what the meat of things that we've got here. There's a little more of that Spindrift for the working man. What's today? Blood orange tangerine. Delicious. Spindrift, I'm still waiting for that sponsorship. Okay. Labyrinth Lord second edition. I'm gonna, I don't have a guide to what's new, so I'm gonna be kind of poking around. If you've read through it, you're here in the chat. If you find this afterwards and you've read through it, that doesn't really help me. But if you're here in the chat and I'm missing something that I should hit, or there's whatever, let me know, because I don't know if I can really hit everything during the time. Hey, Frederick says, good to see Labyrinth Lord back. Yeah, it is good. It's nice when folks come back to things, and I'm very curious as to see kind of what they're gonna do with it. Right? It's like they're resuscitating this creature. We're gonna see what it's got, or maybe I should say maybe that's not the right metaphor. Maybe the car has been in the garage and they're giving it a tune up and they're bringing it up to code, car code, passing inspection and whatnot. All right, enough of that. So we got, all right, this is more just new stuff. So they're calling a dungeon a labyrinth. Okay, we got experience points. That's to be expected. One of the things I'm really curious about is how far they're now going to diverge. It doesn't seem like from those prefaces that they're really diverging all that much from BX. So I'm curious as to where they're going to draw that line, if they should, in terms of how far can we go. I mean, my own thinking would be just go, right? Because like we've all been saying, BX exists, other retroclones exist. You don't need to necessarily hew close to it, but of course, the flip side of that is the compatibility thing. And it sounds like they want to stay pretty compatible. So they're probably not going to vary too much, at least in terms of really, really core stuff, or at least that you can look at a stat block and convert it back and forth pretty easily. All right, so they've got Thaco, hit points, hit dice. Yeah, we got all that. Roll 3d6. Do this for each attribute. I don't think they're doing anything funky with the attributes, are they? No, we got strength, dex, con, int, whiz, and charisma. I kind of wish they would have taken the. I feel like I know that whenever my Heartbreaker comes out, you will not see wisdom and intelligence scores in this manner. I just don't like it. I think it pushes people to play in a certain way. In terms of mechanics, intelligence factors in, depending on edition and whatnot, into spells known and languages known, which I think would come down to more, say, education. I don't know, education, how much of reading have you done, that sort of thing. Did you take classes, and not your smarts? I would rather, if someone wants to play someone who's a doofus, play doofus. And you could still make use of what mechanically intelligence is used for. And kind of the same thing with wisdom, I feel. So I always look for when these newer kind of systems are coming out, if they're doing anything with that, but they're not. But I can't. I'm not angry at them, but I always think of it a little bit of a missed opportunity to kind of clean that up a little bit, at least for me. You may not agree with me on my assumptions or my wants, which is fine. So we have strength, we got dex. I don't think anything's happening. Let's see. We've got -3 to +3 in terms of ranges. What's DAC? Do I need to look at what is DAC? Armor class is AC, DAC, descending armor class. Oh, I see. So they're giving us separate descending armor class and ascending armor class modifiers, I guess, where applicable. I would have been fine with the parins, but that's fine. Doesn't really hurt readability or anything, and you've got the space, so I guess why not? So we got goes from 3 to -3 to +3, missile attack modifiers, and initiative modifiers. And then constitution, same old, same old. Intelligence, see, we got our languages, additional languages, and then our language proficiency, and then wisdom with the saving throw modifiers. And then charisma, reaction adjustments, retainers, and then retain morale. Now we have the prime requisites, which is same as kind of it ever was. Depending on how high it is or low it is, you either get a penalty or a positive adjustment to experience. So this is all fine and good. So now we're going to get into classes. Are they doing anything interesting with classes? Hey, Dave, welcome aboard. Let's see. Choosing a class. Once attributes have been determined, each player must choose a class. Each class will have a prime requisite, and some classes have a requirement of a minimum attribute score. If the prime requisite attribute is high enough, the character will receive a bonus to experience. I kind of wonder about this. I think if I were going to go through and kind of clean up BX a little bit, I would get rid of the requirement and just use the bonus or penalty to experience, because it's like you're getting double dinged, right? I want to be a thing, but I don't know, I want to be a brownie, but my intelligence is 9. Oh no, what do I do? Well, just become a brownie. I know they have it where you could swap your ability scores around. I get that. But at the same time, you say, just become a brownie and just take the penalty. So you're not a great brownie, right? That penalty to your experience is that it is a struggle for you to be a brownie. So it takes you a little bit longer. And if you want to pay it, like I would give that option open. If you want to just pay the penalty, pay it. If you want to reconfigure your scores, buying and selling some to get, that's fine too. I would just give folks the choice. Hey, Drew. All right, so brownies, and here's the description. This is new, at least new to me. Brownies are cousins of elves, sharing similar features. They average 4 to 4.5 feet tall, weigh about 90 pounds, have pointed ears, and are generally wafy. Is that, I don't know, do they wafy? Unlike elves, they are quite sociable, commonly living among humans and hobfolk. Okay, we don't know what hobfolk are. Are they kind of goblinoids? We'll see. Brownies have varied appearances, but are often earth-toned. They are playful pranksters and are skilled at fixing household items and keeping things tidy. Their domestic proclivities align well with hobfolk who enjoy eating and appreciating the brownies' hospitality. And the hobfolk with the eating makes me sound, are they more halfling types? Are they goblin types? Or did they merge them together? So interesting that they say that unlike elves, they're quite sociable. I guess sociable with others. Maybe I'd say that they mix more. They're less segregated. They keep themselves less segregated. I guess sociable works. So let's see. What exactly are brownies? So there's a brownies in terms of fiction, but what exactly can they do? They cast wizard spells. They have night vision. They can use any weapon except for large or two-handed weapons. They studded leather's the heaviest armor they can use. They can't use shields. If they're fighting something larger than human, they get a bonus to their armor class. They get first level burglar skills and advance once every other level. So they're kind of a half thief, if you will, or I guess half burglar. They get a little bit of a bonus reaction versus ordinary or giant animals. Kind of cool. And they're immune to charm and similar effects. So there you go. And if you've got high intelligence and charisma, you get a plus 5% bonus to XP. Hey, Michael Fraker. Ask, was Labyrinth Lord the original Retroclone? I don't know. I don't think it was. Swords and Wizardry might have been first, or Osric. Maybe Osric was the first one. It was in that first batch, I would say. I am not knowledgeable enough to know offhand which one absolutely came first. I don't think it was, but it was in that first class, if you will, of uh, clones. That's about as much. That's about as fine a point as I can put on it. I'm sure a Wikipedia entry or something probably has that straight, but I wish I knew it, but I don't. You get common and you get brownie. And then if they're 8th level, we get a little domain note about brownies can establish burrows near human or hobfolk settlements. Burrows house several brownie families. Within 5 miles, ordinary and giant animals are friendly to brownies, warning them of dangers and passing along messages. In exchange, brownies protect the local wildlife. That's cool. So we don't get a sense of how many people you attract to you, but this is kind of, I'm guessing, your brownie stronghold. And I like to say it's cool. It's interesting that they say you have to kind of put it near human or hobfolk settlements. I guess you do. I guess I'm not sure why you wouldn't want it further away if you could. But on the flip side, I think this makes it sort of interesting or a good idea to have, if you can, a brownie settlement near you, because at least if you're keeping the ordinary giant animals friendly, and it seems like a good bulwark against wilderness stuff if you can have some brownies. Now that does maybe curtail some things like hunting and whatnot. If you can figure it out how to make it work, it seems like, oh wow, if we put our settlement here and we get some brownies to put some settlements here, we can kind of give ourselves an early warning system, a little bit of protection, at least from, monsters are still going to come tromping through, but maybe then we'll get warning of them. But then animals will be friendly, so the wolves won't attack us, the bears will leave us alone, etc., etc. And let's see, they are a very simplified experience system. Basically, it's in threes, so you go from 3 to 6 to 12 to 24 to 48 to 96 to 192. 100,000 at that point, and there's basically an 8-level progression. And he gets, oh, they gave titles, which is nice. Brian Smith says, put out brownie food to attract them like birds. Haha. Or do you have to put out brownies? Do you have to bake brownies to attract brownies? That would be the key question. And then let's see. So, okay, there's their hand armor class 0. So their combat table, and then their spell progression. Well, that's a nice little class. Now I get burglars. Presumably these are thieves, essentially. They get burglar skills. They can use any weapon. That's a little bit different. They get the backstab. They can't wear heavier than studded leather. No shields. They can read a magical item 80% at 4th level. They can use wizard scrolls with 90% at 10th level. And then for backstab, there's a note. Burglars must catch an opponent unaware using move silent and hide in shadows. Brian Smith, if you showed up, would you be a half brownie? It's a good question. That's an interesting question there. Well, I guess we're doing rate. It's essentially, we're following BX here with kind of species as class or culture class. So are there half brownies? I mean, I guess I'd have to look at how they do half elves, presuming those exist here. They might not, right? Because I don't know. I would say yes, you could be a half brownie, but I'm not sure what that would look like. So interesting thing here, use any weapon. I don't know that I would. Well, I don't want to. I'm gonna keep my edits. Well, maybe I don't know. Why are you listening to me if I want to keep my thoughts to myself? I probably would take away the use any weapon and give them some more limited weapons. I wonder I've always thought about this. I don't know how I feel about ultimately, but I feel like backstab, I would take that away from burglars and give it to anybody, but it's an evil kind of thing, chaos kind of thing to do. I'm not sure how I don't even know if I'd really feel the need to give something back to the burglar types, other than maybe, and we'll see, what do they do with the burglar skills? Because one of the issues that people find with basic expert and later BECME and the rules cyclopedia is, and even this doesn't really go away. I think even in first edition, though, I think Gygax tries to do more of there's more explaining that he tries to do in that, is this concept of what the skills mean. Are they supernatural? Like, if you read, there's that section, I read it on the stream a while back now, maybe in the last year, I think, where he talks about, where Gygax mentions that, hey, move silently means for thieves, move silently, not move quietly, not move where only this cat that's sitting by the door perks its ears. Like, you're not making any noise. In fact, he makes a point of saying that the thieves, when they're moving silently, is like wearing the slippers of silent moving. I mean, it's basically almost, or if not, it's a supernatural, almost magical effect, right? You are moving, not just mostly silent, where if you put a sound meter next to their feet, you're only seeing a little bit. It's like you put a sound meter next to the thief while they're moving silently, and there's no sound. That's what it is. BX and similarly, they didn't give you all that. So it was always a little bit of that. You had to hope your game master referee read the rule the way you did. Otherwise, as people have pointed out ad nauseum, I'm not going to go through it all, but you might end up in a situation where if somebody we're going to roll under attribute to do something and you had to roll your thief skill, you're almost better just doing the roll under attribute because your thief skill was terrible and didn't get very good. So I'm curious if they do something with that or how they're doing. We can see right here, we've got pick locks. That's fine. And, that was one of the ones that wasn't particularly supernatural. Find and remove traps is another one. Pickpockets, fine. Move silently. So here, let's see what they say about this one, because this is one of the where we get to the kind of more pseudo supernatural type stuff. Hey, RPG Grandma. Move silently. Others will not hear the movements of a burglar. However, the burglar always thinks they are successful in this skill and will not know unless others react to their presence. Okay, so nothing about them being particular nature of the silence. For climbing walls, so here they've gotten rid of climb sheer surfaces, I think is what I've got just so happen to have my BX binder in front of me. So I'm just going to get the wording that they use just so we can kind of compare and contrast here. And I don't have an old version of Labyrinth Lord hanging around. I mean, I'm sure I do somewhere, but I didn't look it up. So shame on me for that. Hey, Fear Stacks, happy Monday to you. Okay. So we've got thief skills. Where are the thief skills? So all right. So the thief skills in BX are open locks, find, remove traps. So right now we're the same, right? Pickpockets, same. Move silently, same. And basically the same note on move silently that BX has. Climb steep surfaces, hide in shadows, and hear noise. So they really didn't change it. So they changed climb steep surfaces to climb walls. Now, I don't know if we would say, do you lose something in steep surfaces over walls? Steep surfaces is a bit vague. I suppose you could say that what is a steep surface, but it's a wall. You might, in a game that if you're encompassing, let's say, hex crawling, if there's a cliff, maybe I don't know who's going to be. I'm going to play kind of devil's advocate with kind of the jerky DM. You're up against a cliff or some kind of rock, whatever. And you're like, oh, and maybe it doesn't even have to be a cliff. Maybe it could be something like a loose, I don't know, loose gravel or something that's but it's steep, right? Oh, this is really hard. And I could see a BX thief saying, hey, I'd like to, this sounds like a steep surface. Could I climb it? Okay. Right. Hey, but if you were playing Labyrinth Lord in this case, and I don't know what Labyrinth Lord 1.0 did, so it might do the same thing, but it's been a long time since I've looked at it. And I'm coming in this fresh. Now it's called Climb Walls. Now, as Fearstex points out in the description, it does say sheer surfaces. So maybe we'd say they mean the same thing. I mean, it would seem like they do mean the same thing. However, I guess what I'm saying is I like with the name of the skill, because remember what happens is if you call it Climb Walls, that tells you one thing. If you call it Climb Steep Surfaces, it tells you something slightly differently. And if I have this in the book, I can read in the book and I'll get like what Fearstex points out. Hey, surfaces, sheer surfaces, including walls or steep cliffs. But now I put the book away and I've just got my character sheet. And I look at climb steep surfaces versus climb walls. They don't communicate to me the same. And if I don't remember to check back or I don't make a note, you can lose that little piece. So I kind of wish they would have kept it just because you just keep that little piece or even expand it. Because like I think here's one of the opportunities you have with these rules is to go above and beyond. And how did they play thieves in their games? Did they play with it or did they let people be more open? And I would kind of like with the thieves that kind of tended to get the short shrift of the rules in BX and related games anyway. If you want to just go a little bit bigger, hey, give them something, right? Especially for me, since I'd be removing, maybe taking backstab away and any weapon away, then I might say, let me go a little bit broader on that. like I don't even know what I would call it. Maybe just like I'm gonna call it super climbing, but whatever. It's there. Like it's fiercely, it is there. But I wish they would have just kind of just give me the it's got non-horizontal services, non-Euclidean services. Hey, if we were playing, if this were sort of some kind of Cthulian game, I could totally see non-Euclidean services being something that's important. And then we got here noise. Now let's see what they did with the percentages or the things. So they're doing D100 and D6. I wish they would have fixed this. I don't mean fix. Like, there's nothing wrong with this, but I feel like this annoys me a bit because it's just to me, it's weird where I have 5 abilities on the same table that all work one way and then one ability that works a different way. Why couldn't we just go with X and 6 over everything? And here's the other part of it, right? One of the issues that came up, the original thief issue, was that the thief class made a class of things that pretty much everybody's trying to do. We're all trying to climb walls. We're all trying to move silently. We're all trying to pick pockets at times. We're all trying to find and remove traps, pick locks if we can, hide in shadows, hear noises. If you have everything in X and 6, then you can have like a level that's normal man up here that says gives you 1 and 6, probably 1 and 6 across the board. And then thief levels can layer on top. And then you have not only do you have a progression that's the same, we're going to use X and 6, that hey, I can use X and 6 and I understand that across the board. But everybody else, it's basically putting a skill system that everyone else uses the same way. We can say, hey, normal man does this, thieves start here, go down. I understand why they're doing it this way because they want a whole bunch of progression. They don't want, if you have X and 6, you end up with these big blocks. Oh, nothing changes, right? From 3rd level all the way to 6th level, all the way through 6th level, your hear noise doesn't get better. Now, granted, it's at 50%, so it's not like it's horrible. It's pretty good already, but whatever. I get that. But I would have rather done that or done a D20 type thing. And remember, with this Labyrinth Lord, this is their like, hey, we're moving away from BX. We got space. We can finally be free. So this is kind of where I think, free yourself, free all of us, please, free us. So I kind of wish they would have done something with that. All right, we got clerics. I don't know that I need to go through and look at clerics over much. I doubt they're going to do too much. Are they changing the way Turn Undead is really good? And that's another system that they could have leveraged for this. It's kind of done the 2d6 Turn Undead table, which also I think works fine. They could also have that kind of normal man sort of thing. So that would have been another thing. I know I did a video on Turn Undead. I know a bunch of other people have mentioned using Turn Undead as kind of your universal skill system. So that would have been another way that they could have innovated a little bit. So, but they didn't, which, I'm just putting my hopes and dreams, and this is a pre-release draft. So maybe they'll hear some of these comments and think, hey, I have some house rules. We were doing this. Maybe we can kind of break out a little bit more. Especially because these class skills, this is not something you're really going to need to integrate. If I'm playing an old module, that's module or whatever, it doesn't become incompatible because I change the burglar skill table, right? So this is stuff that is core to this rule set, but isn't one that's going to, I don't think anyway, going to break compatibility. All right, so there's the Turn Undead table. I don't think much is changing with that. Well, I think the only thing is in BX, they actually list the undead, the names of the undead that basically fit in here. So I don't know if they have Infernal, but I think they make some other note. But they will say, zombie, skeleton, ghoul, ghast, whatever. They'll have a whole list. So here they're saying the undead HD, which is, it's just a little bit cleaner, neater. I mean, when you look at the tables, because it basically works out to being HD, but it makes it, if you're using custom undead or something else, just look at their HD and you can figure out the difficulty of turning. We got a Thaco, we got the progression going all the way. They have it all the way going all the way up to 20th level. I don't know that I need that. Where the hell did they have the thieves going? Did I see? They go up to 21st, 14th level in your abilities, 21st level, then 20. See, and that's another thing. I think if you just broke it down and said, hey, 10 levels, I think that's nice. 10 levels, very good. Hey, Magnus, I don't think I need more than 10. I'm happy to have 10, and then you just start adding incremental things if you're above 10. Magnus asks, is this a new edition of Labyrinth Lord? And it is, Magnus. It is a pre-release draft of a new edition of Labyrinth Lord. Indeed. Ooh, so we have a new species here. Cyclops. Their requirements are strength. They need strength 12. Their prime requisite is strength. They have a D10 hit die, and their maximal is 8. Cyclops are large demi-humans distantly related to... Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Cyclops are large demi-humans distantly related to Cyclops. Maybe giants? I'm going to put that up as to a typo. Or are we suggesting that monstrous Cyclops and these Cyclops are some kind of relation? They typically weigh around 280 pounds and stand 7 to 7.5 feet tall. Actually, for 7.5 feet tall, 280 pounds isn't not that much. They have only one large eye. They have a diverse range of appearances like humans. Cyclops prefer to live in mountainous areas where they often encounter dwarves and have a friendly relationship. Cyclops are known for their skill at construction and engineering of large structures. Interesting, because I would have thought that the depth perception lacking because they have one eye might have hurt their engineering, but apparently not. They've figured it out. Hey, Bandit Skeeve. Hey, Daniel. Cyclops are inbred. This is indeed Cyclops as a class. Yes, player species, absolutely. And then Brian Smith asks, has anybody come upon different descriptions for how different undead would be, quote unquote, turned? For flavor, like zombies claw back into the earth, skeletons tumble apart and wait. I haven't, Brian, but those are all good points. And I feel like you've kind of got them in hand. It'd be something, I'm sure, I'm kind of surprised somebody hasn't made a table about that, how different undead react to being turned. Fairstack says that I like the turn undead skill table. It's interesting how much has stayed the same. Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, that's kind of I've pointed out before, but going back and reading stuff like OD&D now, it's so much easier for us now to read than it was in 1974, because as much as, even if you came from 5th edition and went straight back to the white box, you're going to understand a lot of the concepts because a lot of them are the same. Dave wants to steal that idea. Dave, you can have it with my compliments. Dave, actually, the idea, because it was put on my channel, belongs to me. As long as you give me, give me a couple of points on the back end, you can have it. All right, Cyclops class features: any weapon or armor, save versus poisons +1, save versus magic a +1, missile attacks at -2, lack of depth perception, though again, that doesn't seem to affect their construction and engineering prowess. If they're searching, they can detect with a roll of 1 or 2 on a d6, unsafe construction, dangerous terrain, unstable rock faces, etc., sloping areas, and non-magical traps. So it seems like they're getting a little bit of kind of dwarfy things in here, and then I guess the non-magical traps, a little bit of is that even an elfy thing? So I like that, but part of me thinks, well, I don't know, because I was thinking like you could fold this into the thief skill kind of thing a little bit. Or at least the non-magical traps type stuff. But it's cool. I can dig it. Let's see. Anything else I need to know? We got their prime requisite stuff, languages, and they have a little bit of kind of domain info. Cyclops can build a mountain stronghold. They will typically be large, spread out structures on or within mountains, but do not descend far underground. These abodes will attract lower level Cyclops. In addition, and less common dwarves and Neanderthals may be attracted to Cyclops leadership. Ooh, so you can have some Neanderthals in there. Nice. And Daniel says that they always imagine turned undead looking like the gang from Scooby-Doo being frightened. I like that too. All right, so that was Cyclops, which was cool. So dwarves. So yeah, so that was Cyclops. So dwarves get deep vision 60 feet, and they can roll a 1 to 2 for searching. See here, okay, so this is what I'm gonna say. I like what they did here, and I like what they did with the Cyclops. However, I guess here's what I'm gonna say. They should just make a rule for search. And then it seems to me that on a search, maybe you say in a 1 in 6 chance you might spot all kinds of stuff. And then you can give certain classes a bonus to their search. So then instead of having to say, write all these out, or like this, you can say, hey, they search with a +1 in terms of unsafe conditions, or you can even break them out. But I feel like what they're kind of doing here with this is they're sort of making universal-ish search action, but they're just putting it under these classes instead. Make a, and this is where I was kind of thinking with the thief stuff. Just have search be kind of a thiefy thing, and then you can have bonuses. So then if you're if you're a dwarf, you might normally only get a 1 to search, but if you're searching for these, you can get +1. I think, right? So then you get your 1 and 2. Because what we don't know from this, if searching, which they're not telling us, is well, what if I'm not a dwarf and I'm searching? Like, what do I roll? And presumably, if you're giving them 1 and 2, unless you're going to say there's no chance, zilch, hey, then you'd get a 1 in 6 chance if that's the default. So they could just make a global rule of if you're searching stuff, it's a 1 in 6 chance, and then certain classes get bonuses to searching depending on what they're searching for. I'm not going to go through the dwarves too much. It's pretty standard. They go up to 12. That's about it. We get elves. Anything different elves? They get knights. So I guess one thing. Let's see. Did they explain what deep vision is? I don't think they do. I don't know. Do we know what deep vision is? I'm sure I could think about it. But I imagine, is it supposed to be underground vision as opposed to night vision? Is it supposed to be infrared? Maybe they'll explain it, but I haven't seen it yet. So, or I went over. I missed it. Elves, night vision. They're immune to guild paralysis. Any weapon and armor. They don't mention with. That's another thing with dwarves. They don't mention if they can wear any armor or weapons. So I'm going to presume that they can. Brian Smith says, "What if you're searching for your one true love? That's where the deep vision comes in. Could be. Like look into the ocean, they can see the deep. Great to take on fishing expeditions. It's like a fish finder. Okay, use any weapons, cast wizard spells, and they get a 1 to 2 on secret or hidden doors. Notice that theirs is they've changed it. Presumably now it's the player needs to be active in doing the search, and it's not when they enter a room. When they enter a room, roll. So they got to search, but they get that bonus to secret or hidden doors. They get some stuff to go to level 10. They got the spell progression. I'm trying to see just if there's anything, and then they can get they have their stronghold stuff. One of the things that they're not mentioning with strongholds is how many followers you attract. Maybe they're just going to have it not be based on class, or maybe they just don't care. Not sure. Oh, Brian Smith says deep vision is how you see deep fakes. Nice. And Kyle says that elf looks like they're kind of cut off their own possessed hand. That's true. That is true. It does look like the hand is going for the throat, and that she's bringing that sword down. She's going to try to end that conflict right there. Okay, so it is on page 66. Thanks, Ngenga. Says you can see in total darkness. Night vision, you have to have moonlight. All right. That's kind of what I was thinking. That makes sense. Fighters, not really going to, I presume it's, they're fighters. And so the one thing I look is it doesn't look like they get, okay, so they're getting 1 additional attack per round at 5th and every 5 thereafter. Oh man, come on now. This is another place where I said like you could help bring the fighter back some glory. They're not really doing it. You're going to get 1 extra attack at 5th level and an extra attack at 10th and 15th and 20th. That's a lot. You're asking a lot of me, pal. You're asking a lot. All right. Now we get hobfolk. I'm guessing these are halflings. I don't know whether some of these creatures are frightened. Look at this hobfolk down there. Her hand's not coming to get her, but she's seen something. I don't know what's happening because with the perspective, the shot doesn't give it to us. But man, that hobfolk has seen something. She has seen something she don't like. 90% hide outdoors. And they're giving everybody. I kind of wish they would tone down the weapons. I feel like there's some weapon and armor creep happening here. Hobfolk can use so many things can use any weapon and armor, and I feel like plate, the heavy weapons and heavy armor should be fighters only. Maybe dwarves get a little bit, but I think that I think that's too lenient. I think my personal opinion is they're being too lenient on the weapons and armor being used by everybody. Michael Fraker says, HP in the group, what is the highest level you have either played to, been a group, played to, or GM'd? Probably around the 8 to 10 level range. I don't think I've gone really higher than that. Maybe I haven't. I don't remember, but I would say 8 to 10, somewhere in that, somewhere in there would be for me. Michael says that seems like all these high level perks never get used. Yeah, I don't know. I was never on one of those. I know some groups back in the day did it. I have no idea about now, especially when Beckme came out and you could hold up as a prize the immortality. I think a lot of folks tried to kind of death march it to immortality. So I'm sure in the age of Beckme, folks who were playing that probably did when they got to when the immortal rule set was out and available, probably tried to get there, right? You try to get to where the next book is. Was never one to do. That was never something that I didn't really play Beckme very much. I don't even know if I really played it much at all itself, and it wasn't something that was on the menu, I suppose. All right, and then so we got Hobfolk stuff. We do have some varieties. What is that? Braunball, Braunback, Fairheed, and Hidefoot, which I think are pretty similar to ones we've seen before. Now we get to wizards. Pick one single-handed medium weapon, otherwise can only use small weapons. This is interesting. One single-handed medium weapon. Is that kind of a shout out to Gandalf having a sword? No shields or armor. Oh yeah, were clerics able to use swords? Did they remove that? I didn't see that. Clerics. Okay, so they kept that pointed edge. See, I would have given clerics that. They could use any weapon if it's the weapon of their deity. Otherwise, whatever. I'm not sure why they gave it to wizards, other than kind of the Gandalf effect. All right, so for wizards, kind of their domain level bit is they can create spells and magic items, and there's the magic research section for that. They also can build a stronghold, often a great tower at level 11. Here, for some reason, they give the wizards apprentice numbers a D6, but they don't give that. They don't give numbers for everybody, for their kind of followers. I'm curious if this is something that they can only do at 9th level. I wouldn't. I'm not opposed to being able to at least do magic items or spells rather prior to 9th level. Magic items. I mean, I wouldn't want to go the AD&D route of it, kind of if having sort of the mathematical or the technical things of which spells you need to do and whatever to do with the cast and which way to do it. I would say maybe if you make your stronghold, then you can can be some kind of, I don't know, you can potentially attract, or maybe you can, a whole adventure thing could be, can you get a smith or somebody to work with you to do this? Because I don't think, I just say you by yourself could just make a magic ring, let's say. I know Sauron did, but I imagine the elves and things that they had whole teams helping them. That you get a team, you get some smiths to help you, whatever. But I think I'd prefer to have spells be more open, because I'd like folks to get into doing more of their own spells, and waiting until 9th level just seems too far for me. All right, so we have alignments. I'm just going to read the blurbs. So lawful beings believe in truth and justice. To this end, they'll follow laws and believe all things must adhere to order. Lawful beings also believe in sacrifice to a greater good and will choose the good of a larger group over the good of an individual. So we're no longer, we're not doing law and chaos as sort of abstract teams. We are definitely saying law is good. Neutrality. Neutral beings are more self-centered. They believe in a balance between the ideas of law and chaos, and in their actions, they tend to do what will serve themselves. I kind of wish they would get rid of the balance part, because I feel like neutral, for players who take neutral, I think the way it works is really, it's just about, I want to do what I want when I want to do it. Whether it's good, whether it's not good, whatever. And I feel like this idea that cloaking it in this, like, oh, it's the balance, to me is just cheese. Just get rid of it. They're self-centered. And I get that they probably have to do this because I need to differentiate it from chaos, which is also self-centered. But Here I think they're giving more of this chaos is, evil with a capital E sort of thing. If neutrality is more good, they're all lower caps. All right, so chaos says chaotic beings are in direct opposition to law. These beings should be seldom trusted, for they tend to act in quote unquote evil ways. Why are you putting evil in quotes? You didn't put good in quotes. Just say evil. It's evil. It'll be much more selfish than a neutral being. Chaotic characters believe in chance and that there should be no innate order to life. All right. So we get a bit on character inheritance. We got languages. Got a note on genre and beginning characters. Some stuff, basically all this playstyle stuff, which is good. I don't know if it's in Labyrinth Lord. I'm gonna skip it. So here's kind of interesting. I'll read this bit. So many paths to victory. Since you are a fledgling first level character, you can't tackle all challenges head on. Sometimes you just have to run away from that monster. Maybe you trick it or lure it to a place where it will be harmless or could be more easily dispatched. There are many ways to defeat foes, and killing them isn't the only way. Generally, you get the experience points for defeating the monster, even if you don't kill it. Defeating it can mean parlaying with it, reaching a truce, lure it with lies, maybe outwit it. Well, I hope that they have that point on the DM side. Most GMs I know will give experience, and we'll see if they're really moving away from the BX kind of gold for XP, but the experience for monsters is kind of negligible for the most part, especially at lower levels. So I don't even know that worrying about it, but make sure that that rule is front and center for all parties, because here it's kind of buried, and I could definitely see someone just not reading it and missing that part. And especially I want my GM and want to highlight it and see the GM's like, look, a defeat is as good as a defeat in guile is as good as a defeat in battle. Kind of thing. But they do have some things like, hey, iron spikes, flasks of oil, rope, crowbars, 10-foot poles, flint and steel and torches. Like they're good for stuff. Okay, Ferristech says it's not in the older editions, and it's new here, and they quite like this part for attempting to introduce the playstyle. Yes, so good. So it's not, so it is new. But yeah, I'm not going to read it just because I'm on limited time. But yes, I am glad that they're putting some things in here to help new folks. I mean, this is some of the things that Old School Essentials I think is missing. Though Old School Essentials is probably even more technical in some of the things, but as good as a reference as OSE is, I think it doesn't really help folks with getting into the playstyle. So I'm glad that they are adding this in. The one thing I'm curious about, and there's really no way of knowing, it's going to be how they develop this, is people who are going to be, is this going to be something that is going to filter out? Because I think the other thing with Old School Essentials is I think that we are going to see people who are new to the OSR coming in through Old School Essentials. So Old School Essentials becomes their first gateway into the OSR. So a lot of their questions are bigger than just OSE questions, but it is that kind of play style. I don't even really know what I'm doing. And it just makes the lack of that stuff in Old School Essentials all the more glaring, because it's where people are coming in, so they really need it. Hopefully, and maybe this will be a reason why people will say, hey, go read Labyrinth Lord. Hey, if this is confusing, you're not sure, go read Labyrinth Lord, because they've got a great section on playstyle. Like, I hope that this filters out so that it's available to the new people, because the other folks like me, like most of the people who are in here probably watching this or watch it later, it's kind of like, I get all this stuff. So hopefully it makes it out, but that's good to know that it's new. We got marching order. That's great. Mapping, trying things. That's a party organization. That's good. They're not pushing the caller. I'd still like to try the caller. That is good. Hirelings and henchmen. Here's where veteran dungeon dwellers differentiate themselves from the barely weaned. Imagine this. Your party has 5 characters. You encounter a giant poisonous snake. Depending on where everybody is located, when the encounter occurs, the Labyrinth Lord might randomly check, that's the GM, might randomly check to see who that serpent bites. That's bad news, because sometimes one failed saving throw is all it takes to make sure you never leave the dungeon. So naturally, in a party of 5, you have a 1 in 5 chance of being picked. Now imagine you have a couple of hired hands with you. They may be armed, or maybe they're just there to hold torches. That giant snake doesn't care why they're there. If you've got a couple of those guys in your group, suddenly you have a 1 in 7 chance of being attacked. Oh, so that's an interesting way to put it. As threat, hirelings as threat mitigation. Also a good point. And I would love if more folks got more into hirelings, but I feel like in the OSR they do. But again, this is clearly trying to speak to people who may be new to the hobby. Whether those folks are new to the hobby will get pointed to Labyrinth Lord is a whole other question, but good for them. They're putting it in there. Money and coins. I'm not going to worry about that. So we got equipment. I don't think anything really interesting is going on with that. So I'm going to skip. It all looks good, but it all seems pretty standard. We do have some packs. These are all nice. I know people like their equipment packs. I've enjoyed equipment packs. This is kind of nice. You could just grab a Dungeoneer's pack for 8 gold pieces. It weighs 39 pounds, gives you a bunch of stuff. Or there's the burglar pack, a little bit more expensive, well, a lot more expensive and heavier. Cleric has a pack, the wizard has a pack, and the fighter has a pack. These are all very nice. Oh, I see. The other ones are add-ons. This is the basic pack for all characters, and the add-on pack. I see. So you'd buy the Dungeoneer's pack and then add on the other stuff. Oh, okay. Interesting that the burglar's pack is by far the heaviest, right? Because they have to add these weights together, right? Because otherwise the fighter pack would be less than so it's got to be 44 on top of 39. Those are nice. You could just hand people those. It is good and convenient, Michael Finger. I agree. And it's not the first place I've seen it, but it is good. It is good. Spells, and spells. I'm not going to go through the spells. I will look at something like Charm just in case they change it. Because that's one that might get changed. Or maybe Fireball. I'll read Charm and Fireball. And I don't know if there's another one. So Charm Person. First level wizard spell duration special. 1 being in range. Spell causes a humanoid creature to view the caster with trust, leading to a shift in the target's attitude to a friendly disposition. Undead creatures are unaffected, as are humanoid monsters larger than ogres. The spell does not enable the caster to control the charm person as if it was an automaton, but it perceives the caster's words and actions in the most favorable way. The subject can be given orders, but actions it wouldn't normally do based on its nature or alignment may be abstained. The influenced creature refrains from following commands that would lead to self-destruction or clearly detrimental outcomes. However, it can be persuaded that engaging in highly perilous tasks, like stuff in the dungeon, combat, etc., holds value. The spell's effect is disrupted if the caster or their apparent allies engage in actions that jeopardize the subject. Issue commands the target must communicate in the target's language or possess adept pantomiming skills. All right, so I think you could have some fun with the pantomiming part of this. Creatures will gain additional saving throws versus spells at time intervals based on the intelligence scores, and intelligence of 3 to 8 grants a new save every month, 9 to 12 every week, 13 to 18 every day. Otherwise, charm person can be negated by the spell dispel magic. Okay, so I think that's pretty much more or less what it was. All right, so that's fine. Let's look at fireball. Just want to see if they do anything with the damage or anything like that. Seems like otherwise. Looks like it's pretty standard. Let's see. Wizard, yep, 3rd level spell, instant duration, 240 feet radius, 20-foot radius. Okay, so now Fireball doesn't do a set amount of damage. 1d6 points of fire damage for each level of the caster. So the higher level caster you are, the bigger your fireball gets. Or not even bigger. The more damaging it gets. So that's cool. So you start off with 3d6 at 3rd level. Or I guess you get a 3rd level spell, 3rd level, whatever level you'll get it, right? So if you're 4th level wizard, you'll do 4d6, 5th level, 5d6, etc., etc. I'm down with that. I'm all right with that. That's cool. I like spells that kind of can I don't know, kind of level up with you a little bit. I don't think I need to. Is there any other ones I feel like would be interesting? Magic Missile. Missile of magic energy darts from the caster's hand or can resemble an energy bow. Ooh, energy bow and arrow. Like the lightning bow, it strikes unerringly dealing 1d6 plus 1 points of damage. Only total cover or concealment protects from magic missile. For every 5 caster levels, they gain 2 additional missiles, 3 total at 5th level, 5 at 10th level, 7 at 15th level. Oh, so they gain 2. So okay, I got you. That's pretty cool. I'm down with that. So again, they kind of level up with you. I like either the fact they level up with you or if you get to increase their spell slots. Some way of being able to modulate them, I think is nice. Okay, I think I'm not, like I said, I don't feel like we need to. Now, notice there was no There's only we only have one spell casting type. There's no. Oh, we had two. We had the clerics, and we had the magic users. No druids, anything like that. At least not in this test. I'm kind of curious if they are going to add anything, and I go back and forth on whether I like druids in that. I mean, I like having them as NPCs. Maybe I think I probably just play them as kind of a specialist cleric kind of thing. Maybe I probably would make it its own class, but I would basically just make it cleric. Change turn undead into something to do with animals. Something like that. Maybe give them some kind of shape shifting. I don't even know. Maybe not. All right, rules for adventuring. I'm really trying to get to the meat of it. How many pages do I have left, by the way? We haven't even gotten to combat. Time, okay, around 10 seconds. A turn is 10 minutes. An hour is 6 turns, and a day is 24. Okay, so we got our scales, which is good. Exploring movements, 120 feet. This is that. I know people find this dungeon speed slow. I would always say, by the way, a little as a side, if you want to change up the speed of things, change what the turns mean rather than the turns. Keep the turns the way they are. In other words, if we're saying one action moving 120 feet is one turn, and you want to change that, I would say change that and say, well, we're going to have, if 120 feet in 10 minutes seems way too slow, then change your turns to 5 minutes, but keep the turn kind of cadence the same. If that makes sense, because those turns, it has a lot of knock-on effects, and it seems like when people mess with those and they don't understand that, it ends up causing a whole lot of other stuff. So if you want to change the turns, go ahead, just change the time. You can just change if you want to make rounds in combat 3 seconds, make those 5 minutes, whatever, just change it up. But keep that mechanism, that time mechanisms, kind of turn mechanisms going until you have a good sense of them, and then obviously do whatever the heck you want. Let's see, combat, fighting retreats, full retreats, that's great. Running, climbing. When characters are climbing in a difficult or tense situation, Labyrinth Lord can require an attribute check versus Dex. Note that only thieves can climb extremely steep and high surfaces due to their special training and knowledge of the use of climbing equipment. But it doesn't say is if you make the thief do both. So I'm not sure. See, this is where, again, if they had just made some kind of universal skill, then they could just tap into that instead of having this, which is not, I don't remember if it's in BX, probably is. They're kind of sounds like something that they're doing in BX, but again, and you end up with these weird things like, well, if I'm a thief and it's a tense situation, I'm trying to climb something steep, do I need to roll under Dex and my climbing roll? Do I need to, right? Like, what am I doing? It's not clear. And it would have been nice if they just gave everybody like, hey, if you're trying to do this, but oh yeah, thieves can use it a little bit more and they're better at it, then you can just have the kind of the one rule and you don't have to kind of make exceptions all down the line. Michael Frager says doubling speed and okay or do it, does it cause issues? Well, what I would do is instead of doubling speed necessarily, I would just, it's like, I don't think it causes issues if the turns are the same. It can cause issues when you start monkeying with the turns. And for example, I forget where, somebody was having a hard time. They were doing, I forget what module they were doing, and then had this part of it which was supposed to be fraught and kind of perilous, but because the GM felt that like they didn't move fast enough, or that speed didn't make sense to them, the party was able to move through it really quickly, and a lot of this stuff that you were supposed to roll and have opportunities to do didn't happen because, right, you have this mechanics and those turns are ticking, and then you hit certain turns and this does this and this does that, and you have these mechanisms that are all these gears that are all lined up together. Well, they monkeyed with the gears. If they wanted it to be faster in game time, they could have kept the turns, made the turns shorter, and kept that kind of fraught possibilities and probabilities going. Instead, they didn't. So that's kind of what I'm saying, right? I would say that just make the turns equate to smaller increments of time, but keep the kind of cadence of how many turns it takes to go through something about the same until you understand and appreciate everything that everything that gear is doing when you're turning. You've kind of figured that out. Then after that, you're free to do. I mean, look, people are going to do what they want to do anyway, right? I have no illusions about that. But I think if you can, you see something, because I think oftentimes people see something, hey, this doesn't make sense in my my experience or in the real life. But the fact is that this is a game, and sometimes the stuff like the amount of time it takes is actually the least relevant part of it. Doesn't really matter if you want to take less time because no one's got watches, no one's being timed. It doesn't really matter that much. But keep the turns. You want to stay on that cadence again until you kind of get it and you figure out I want to change this, that, or the other to do something. Does that make sense? That it might not muddy up the waters too much. Okay, so we have some wilderness movement, which is good because I want to say that BX is lacking wilderness movement. I mean, it's got getting lost and it's got some other things, but I don't think it actually tells you how fast you move. I don't think. I could be misremembering though. Sometimes, this happens with me, so I apologize, but a lot of stuff is so kind of ingrained in my brain, but also mixed up with where I read it that I have good ideas of what I want to do with wilderness movement without having to check a particular rule book. So I forget which rule book it's in. So if it's in the expert set, which is would be where wilderness movement is, great. But for some reason, I kind of have this idea in my brain that actually it's not there. But like I said, I could be misremembering. But we got some terrain travel speeds, which is good. Force march, that's good. Losing direction, roll a d10. So that's a little bit different because I believe in BX they do it on a d6, but it's not super different. Rations and foraging. Each day of traveling, roll a d6. A roll of 1 indicates sufficient food for 1d6 human-sized beings has been acquired. This is cool. I wish they would call this out because it's not necessarily how I would do scavenging, but it's something that comes up a lot, and I kind of think it should be highlighted a little bit more. Highlight that stuff out. And then, of course, there's a note, you might get penalized if you're starving to death, which, hey, I can appreciate that. Swimming, carrying capacity, air travel, winged mounts. All right, so here we got where we're getting to the vision, the light, and darkness. Torch lasts for 6 turns, has a 30-foot radius. Lantern, 24 turns, also 30-foot radius. That's standard. We have action, so we have reactions. So we have traps, trap detection, reaction to hiring offers. I think this is pretty much standardish. 2d6, figure out whatever you roll. Retainers, retainer morale, counters. Labyrinth Lord may raise the retainer's morale score by 1 permanently. Oh, nice. All right. And there's a box text here. Encounter probability adjustments. Labyrinth Lord may rule that a random encounter is more likely than 1 in 6, depending on the context. If the characters are loud, bringing animals into the dungeon, or any other activities that could attract monsters, the odds might go to 1 in 2 in 6. Even more in some circumstances. That's fair. It's a nice note. I think people should feel, you should always feel free to change, adapt the rules to your situation, your play situation. That's definitely one of them. All right, so we get this indoor play sequence, which I kind of wish they'd put in a way that's more bulleted. This is something that people have a lot of issues with, so let's read theirs. We can see if it's giving us what we think we need. Let's see. Michael Frager says for dungeon exploration, the thing that they were hung up on forever was how far you could move and still do some other action, like search for traps. Well, yes. So essentially, you're kind of picking or choosing, but you can be loose with it, right? So ideally, you move and you're just moving. That's one action, 1 turn. Checking for traps, 2 turns. The thing is that, like Michael Fraker, I would say is don't get hung up on it. Like this is the thing where I think just keeping it abstract and not worrying about the time. Take an action, it's a turn. Or, that's it. And so you 1 action, 1 turn. And don't worry about it. Because remember, nobody's wearing a stopwatch. Doesn't matter. You want to keep the gear moving. So just 1 action, 1 turn. Because people want to get into like, well, it's a fraction. If it's 10 minutes, can I do this in 2 minutes and then 8 minutes? And it's like it just gets like I don't even want to go down those paths. Don't even worry about it. Just 1 action, 1 turn. And sometimes some actions you're going to say, well, I felt like we're too fast for that time. That's fine, but we're not going to worry about it. There are other actions that might seem like 10 minutes is not enough time. We're also not going to worry about that. So, just one action, one turn. And if you do that and not worry about the fact that it's 10 minutes or whatever it is, and I feel like it'll make everybody feel better. And it puts you at ease. It'll put everybody at ease. Okay, so indoor play sequence. So, yeah, like I said, I wish they would have bolted it out, but let's read what they have here. Turns progress in the labyrinth as characters move about, look for traps, listen for noises, or search areas. The labyrinth lord will occasionally roll for random encounter. If the characters stumble into a monster, either because the labyrinth lord has planned an encounter in the area of the labyrinth, or because a random die roll indicates an encounter, then time shifts to encounter time. Labyrinth Lord rolls 2d6 times 10 to determine the distance in feet separating the characters and the monster. If the monster encounter is pre-planned, the Labyrinth Lord may already know how far the monster is from the characters. Next, the Labyrinth Lord rolls 1d6, see if the characters or the monster is surprised. The characters choose one player, usually the mapper, to roll 1d6 for initiative. Labyrinth Lord rolls a d6 to determine initiative for the monster. Finally, Labyrinth Lord will check the monster's reaction by rolling 2d6. At this stage, the characters can decide what actions to take, whether to fight, flee, or try to talk to the monster. Labyrinth Lord will decide what action the monster takes, and the time will progress in rounds with the side that won initiative acting first. Initiative is rolled again for each side at the start of each round. Usually an encounter is over when one side either dies or flees. And then we have a summary. I kind of wish they would have put up front. Check for random encounter, roll for distance, check for surprise. One party surprised, they lose their action that round. Otherwise, initiative is rolled. Right? Now we get a wilderness play sequence, which I'm not going to read just because I'm running short on time. But it's basically the same as in the dungeon, but the distances should be longer. Oh, and by the way, if you I made that dungeon cheat sheet, and I also put up today, in fact, a wandering creature prep sheet. It is gated. I made it a buck because some really kind folks had donated to the cause for that cheat sheet, and so I made it available for folks who donated a buck. If you want to pay a buck, you can get it. I'll show it on screen kind of at the end, but it basically has a bunch of stuff you can if you want to pre-roll your. It's a sheet printout. You can make one yourself. That you can basically write out your monster stuff so that you can have it and pre-prep it. Because I think that's something that either trips people up or it becomes something that's frustrating to you in play when you're doing all this stuff, rolling it as it happens. But you can pre-roll. So just pre-roll a bunch of monsters and then have them, and that they can be percolating in the back of your brain as your party is making their way through the donjon. We do have chases, which is good, and we have stronghold encounters, which is also good. Attribute checks, warding experience, calculating experience. Let's see, 1 for gold piece. Based on their okay, so yeah, hit dice for monsters experienced, and then I guess they're adjusted from there. Bonuses: hiring specialists and mercenaries. I'm glad they have all these. I'm not going to go through them in particular detail, but I'm glad they're here. Adventures at sea, water vessels, ship weaponry, water conditions, encounters at sea. Let's see. Yep, so we get the combat rules now. I'm not really going to go through these. Doesn't look like they're really changing too much. So you declare movement, you're going to roll initiative, movements, reactions, missile attacks, spells, melee. Oh, interesting. Opponents act is at the bottom. So I am curious about that. So movements made. So they added this thing here. Step 3 is slightly different than in BX. So when you make your move, you get monster reactions. So I'm going to want to read that real quick. The side winning initiative moves first, then other parties, including monsters, move in order of initiative. Depending on the circumstances, this is when the Labyrinth Lord would check monster morale. Monsters might flee in this step. Okay. Many monsters will always attack in an encounter. Sometimes the Labyrinth Lord will decide that a monster reacts differently or may roll to determine how a monster or monsters reacts, countering the characters. So we get this reactions. Interesting that because I would usually roll reactions earlier. Brian's just declares movement. But maybe in BX they have it there too. I suppose I could look. I've got it. Combat is one of those things I think people will have very idiosyncratic ways of running combat, so I'm sure that I do combat. I know I do combat slightly different than book combat. But I am curious just in terms of if this is a place where they're changing much or not. But I gotta find combat first. Oh, we're into spells. We're into the adventure. Okay, so there. So if I'm in the basic set, we've got combat initiative, morale. So they put morale up front. So in the by the book BX combat initiatives, morale checks if needed, movement, missile fire, spells, melee. So here they've added where you declare your movement. I kind of like declaring your movement early. It just means that you can't. I've played around with this stuff in different ways. It's kind of cool, though. It can be kind of messy. I think messy in a good way. We have to kind of decide you're going to move somewhere before you know when you're going to be able to do it. So you can't really hedge your bets. You're like, no, I'm moving. I'm moving. Some kind of funny stuff can happen with sort of people kind of flying by each other during movement because they were either thinking they were going to each other or going to some other locations. Messy but fun. So they don't have that kind of monster reaction in that spot. I think I think they roll reactions beforehand. So that's fine. So slightly tweaked, maybe would be the word. Crits and misses, which is optional. So we know what crit hits, natural roll 20, right? We know that on a 1. More interested to see what they do. Critical miss, hand weapons are dropped and they must be retrieved, losing that combat action to do so. Bows and crossbows suffer broken strings, which must be restrung. Takes 2 rounds. Thrown weapons and sling bullets fly wildly, hitting a random target in range. The player rolls a 1 on a d6. See, I would actually do that with bows too. Simply because if you're in combat, I mean, even look, I don't think we're going to talk about what I believe is going on here. I don't think in 20 seconds in the middle of hectic combat you can restring a bow. I'm not buying it. If your bow suffers a broken string, to me anyway, you're that bow is done for this combat. You're gonna have to take a 10-minute period. That's a 10-minute action to go ahead and get out your string and do it. Like, you're not doing that in 20 seconds. I don't care if they can show somebody on YouTube does it in 10. I don't care. So I think it's a little bit tough. Of course, the other hand, look, flying wildly, that to me is great. Though maybe, you would say it makes more sense with a sling stone because it could bounce around and the arrow is more likely, you're not, you're swinging something around and it flies off, could be in a random direction. You're probably not going to get that with a bow, but, or you just could put it out to bad luck, I suppose, with the bow. We get aerial combat, item saving throws, morale checks. We get the saving throw matrices. We get surrender. That's good. We get a combat example. I'm not going to read the combat example, maybe later, but I'm glad they have it. These are the kind of things I think are useful. And too many times now with modern rules, they get rid of all this stuff. I get it. Space is at a premium. You generally don't need them past your first playthrough, but I still think they're nice to have. I do. I do. All right, so that's all for that. We get monsters. Whole bunch of stuff about monsters. I don't think I imagine these are gonna be pretty standard, right? Anything here? Love the Griffin says 5% chance every round have colossally bad luck. Yeah, that's true. Yes. I mean, that's the thing too with the way they do sling stones is it's whatever your 5% chance, but then actually hurt somebody, it's another 16% chance, so even lower, right? It would be right? It would be if we did any dice output 1d20 equals 1 and 1d6 equals 1. Yeah, basically to crit fail meaningfully with a sling, it's less than 1% chance. So more than likely, it's going to be just a missed attack. And I think I'd probably do something like that with the bow also. 'Cause even if you want to take as written the 2 rounds to restring, that's an eternity in a combat potentially. 2 rounds of you sitting there just restringing your bow. I mean, maybe it happens in round one and they're far away, and then well, I mean, there's a couple things that happen. I mean, I didn't see. Did they have? Hold on. I guess one thing I want to check. I forgot to check was firing into melee. Do they have it? Where did I? No, I went too far. Armed combat, missile attacks, attacking melee, close quarters to attack. Okay. Let's see. I just want to check about melee. Do they have attacks in the melee? I'm not seeing anything. I don't. I think that they get rid of it. To attack with a missile weapon, opponents must be more than 5 feet apart. These kinds of attacks can be from bows, slings, crossbows, and even thrown items like bottles of holy water or oil flasks. The ability to hit with missile weapons. Okay, got that part. In addition, okay, magic weapons. All missile weapons have ranges that must be taken into account. That's fine. If an opponent is further away than the long range listed, just can't hit them. In addition, if an opponent is within the distance listed for short range, the attacker gets a +1. Okay, characters may move and make missile weapon attacks or move and make hand to hand. Okay. All missile attacks are subject to the ordinary combat rules of initiative and surprise. In addition, covers a factor that can influence missile attacks. An attacker cannot hit any opponent that is entirely behind a barrier. Let's see. However, the Labyrinth Lord may apply attack penalties if the target is only partly under cover. I don't see about not. Fluffy Griffin says, restraining a bow is no small feat. An English longbow with a 160-pound pull. Yeah, well, look, I get the gaminess part to it. I would just say, hey, your string's not broken, but something else has gone wrong. Maybe even just that piece of ammunition's gone and it's broken. You're not getting it back, so you lose that arrow. I don't see if you can't. They're letting you. It looks like they're letting you attack in melee, which without any kind of penalty, which I would not do unless you're using cover. Someone can show me up if that's incorrect. I probably would fix that. I'm okay with giving somebody a chance, but I like the Lamentations of Flame Princess method because it starts to take. If you really want to be sure, it takes so many rounds to try to aim down to kind of lock in, and even then, not even then, there's still a chance you hit one of your allies. I found that my players, when they had that option, very rarely used it, or used it and then gave up on it and then didn't go back to it because it just took too much time. And combat your rounds are precious, and you're giving up your chance to do anything else to aim. It's one thing if you got hundreds of feet play room, but usually you don't because someone you're trying to protect is in melee, right? So I kind of like that. It's a nice balance. You can do it, but it's a really bad idea unless you want to be really careful. And being careful tends to be a bad idea because usually things are too fraught. You can't just take 2-3 rounds to try to whittle down your chance of error. But I'm a little bit bummed out that they don't, because one of the things I don't like in modern D&D is that you can edit out, you can easily just fire people. Like, I want it to be melee to be a choice and a significant one. That you rush into melee, you're taking some of your options off the table, or at least making it very difficult. I don't like getting rid of that. I think it's one of the tactical bits that's floating around. So I would insert that back in. So sorry, I just wanted to check that. I don't think I have anything to do on here. Are spiders still nasty, poisonous spiders? I might be curious about that. Where a skink spider. Oh, Spectre drains levels. Okay. Oh, that's not bad. I like this. That you have they put all the boxes. That's a nice little quality of life improvement. So all the monsters from this page, you get all their stat blocks together. I can dig it. So for the spiders, Black Widow, poison. So what? Yep. Still basically save or die. The giant tarantula has a dance kind of thing. I don't remember that. Is that something? Giant tarantula. This giant spider is magical and not truly a tarantula despite its appearance. A magical poison accompanies its bite. The victim must succeed a saving throw versus poison or spasm horribly in a macabre dance. Ooh. I don't think that's how the spiders are in BX, are they? I kind of like it though. I mean, I dig it. I can dig it. Oh, it is. They call it a tarantella. Aha, that's why it was tarantula. Okay, so it is the same. It's just they gave it a different name. I don't think I've ever used a tarantella. Well, there you have it. Throgrin. A Throgrin may appear to be a hobgoblin at first glance, but they are wicked, unholy, magical hybrids of troll, hobgoblin, and ghoul. So basically, oh, what's that? There's another creature that's. Ian says, dance to the funky spider beat. Absolutely. We got some cool stuff in here, but it's monsters. I mean, I kind of figure I'm of opinion. Don't people? I figure people have mostly have the monsters that they need already. But I'm down with it. And you're putting out a rule book. I think you want to give folks the option of just having this one book and just playing. So it's nice to have a selection of monsters, even though I feel like just looking at it from where most people are probably gonna be encountering this, they already got books and books of monsters. I think it's a good thing. It's nice. Clever the Griffin says they don't like that monster table. They're on different pages, so you got to thumb back and forth. That's kind of less useful than having everything under the monster description. Oh, I see. Well, they're on the same page, right? I mean, flip back and forth. I guess it'd be nice if they had an overall index one, but I feel like you have to flip forward to the white. I guess I always say, I mean, you do have to move your eyes up and down. So there was that. Yeah, I guess I kind of like it, but I can see how you're coming from. It's going to probably be a hit or miss thing with the UI. I just kind of like that they have this, so at a glance I can find things easily because it's kind of it also counts as a little bit of an index for that page instead of having to go down. I can just scroll down that way. But I see where it's coming from. I probably would. Oh, the unicorn is on the. Oh, you're right. The unicorn up here. Yeah, you're right on that one. Okay. I'd like them to be for the stuff that's just on the page. I didn't realize they went from page to page. So you're right. I like it in concept, but I'd like all these to be the things that are on this page. Which they do have here. So yes, I would want to change that. Because I agree. I don't want to have to go flip. I like everything on one page. I like having all the creature stuff on the single page. But yes, I agree. That's something I think they could probably fix. Edit. That's a nice picture. Looks like what is that? A manticore? No, or a chimera, maybe? Spider, skeleton. I don't know what that is. Like a ogre, an Etten with pig heads, and then a dragon. Wandering monster tables. They don't give you the numbers appearing, which is interesting. So in BX, I was just looking at this today. So I know gives you the numbers. It has each creatures on one line, and that's because they give you information. And the reason why they do that is because you might run into orcs on level 1. You might also run into orcs on level 3, but they're different amounts of orcs. So for example, in BX, you end up with something where you get orcs on level 1, 2 to 8 orcs, AC 7, 1 hit die each, right? 1 weapon, all that stuff. Now I can flip to let's just go to level 3, which is the highest level. And orcs don't. I guess they don't repeat. I know some of them repeat, but I guess orcs don't repeat. Let me see in the expert set if they were one that repeats is a better example. And if they don't repeat, then I'll have to eat my hat or whatever it is that passes for a hat. Where's the wandering creature tables underground? Don't want. Sorry, I went too far, maybe. I did. All right, so do orcs come back on the? They might not come back on the table. That might be a terrible example. All right, an example of one. Well, let's see. Hold on a minute. I'm gonna find it. What's something that appears on level 1 that appears on level 4 or 5? Hold on. This is the one thing with BX, right? It's 2 books, so if I gotta look in both books, I gotta flip back and forth. Okay, so orcs, Sturgis sprites, specters. Do we get a specter? Skeletons? Do we get skeletons? Do we not? Shadows. I could have sworn bugbears. Lizardmen. Maybe they don't repeat. I always thought they repeated, but maybe they don't. Hold on a minute. Now I'm confusing myself. All right. NPC party. Killer bees. Well, maybe it's not a big deal then. I'm not going to. Zombies appear on level 1? No, they don't. Really? They don't. Well, never mind then. But okay, so I will say this. I thought there was more. I thought there was some that repeated, but it looks like they don't. I mean, there probably are some that repeat, but I can't find it, so I'm just going to say that I'm misremembering in terms of the repetition. However, what I liked was that on the Wandering Monster chart, it you get everything you need right there. So if I'm on level 2 and I get oil beetles, it tells me the number, their armor class, their hit dice. It basically gives me that little monster stat block. That's very nice. This is fine, but it means I have to go back and then go back to that table. Whereas potentially for some of these, like if I get hobgoblins, for example, I don't need to really look at their stat block because they're humanoids essentially. I can just look for this Wandering monster table and I have everything I need. Whereas that one, I'm going to have to flip back to the monster description. So as much as it's on the one hand, it's nice because it's much more concise. I kind of preferred it when it gave you that information. I guess I'm gonna have to go back and see. Okay, so tiger beetles. So some of the beetles, but they're not the same kind of beetle. Gray ooze. Well, looky there. All right, learn something new every day. I gotta bet there's something to repeat. I'm gonna look it up later. It's gonna drive me nuts. I could have sworn that there were some repetitions because what I was gonna say is sometimes the numbers change, but the number of appearings change. But maybe that's written somewhere else, or I'm just got things all kinds of muddled up in my brain, which would not be out of order. Okay, so then we have wilderness wandering monsters. These are also good. Treasure. I'm not going to go through the treasure, right? I don't think there's anything super amazing. Do they have magic sword creation? Kind of what I'm curious. Armor, sapient swords. Yes, I like that. Slaying arrows. We go through the whole alignment, psyche and willpower, motivations, powers. They have some pre-generated hordes. These are nice. Following tables are provided for the referee's convenience. These pre-generated treasures may be used for quick treasure generation during play. Magic items are indicated, must be customized by the Labyrinth Lord. So that's cool. I do like having some pre-generated hordes. So you can see here, you can just pick one if you don't want to do one from scratch, and then we get design and scenarios, locations, stock and labyrinth traps, NPCs, wilderness goals, population size, villages, towns, no cities. Okay. Magic research. It's all if there are instructions here, I wish they were numbered or bulleted out so I don't have to. Here, I feel like I got to read the whole thing. Maybe I'll have to come back to it. I kind of wish it was something you could do earlier. That's just me. Creating a stronghold. You get some building prices. That's good. And then we get some general advice. Characters different levels. Characters and treasure. Character versus player knowledge. Character wealth. Impossible tasks. Luck. Oh, an optional rule for kind of a luck score. Labyrinth Lord as a judge. Monsters and NPCs in play. Random rolls. Ruling wishes. Experience point awards. Milestones. No, please. Well, I don't love milestones, but I will confess a lot of people do, so I can't really hate on them too much for having milestones in there. Let's see. Characters that have a backstory or who make a contribution to the development of the game's story and world can be given appropriate awards. Don't. No, please, no. I don't see. I'm not a fan of these things. I'm okay. Look, have a backstory. That's great. Add to the development of the game. That's great. That stuff is fun. I think you do it because it's fun. I don't want to add things to it. If you can get a quest out of it and then finish the quest, I'm happy to reward the quest. And the reward could just be doing whatever it is. I got to save my sister, and then okay, so you've saved your sister, but that's you accomplishing that character goal is kind of that. That's it. Or you kill the dragon, yay, you get the horde, whatever, and get some experience points, blah blah. But I myself do not want to start having to adjudicate story type stuff or you were a good role player today. I don't want that. I do like career milestones, they could work, but they have some lists here. I probably like them a little more specific than what they're giving here, like burglars that make a major heist. Well, what's a major heist? Give me numbers. Give me numbers. Like 1,000 has to be 1,000 gold pieces per level, something like that, right? An enemy of renown. What is that? I mean, okay, look, on the one hand, it's fine, right? I'm going high trust here. We're going high trust. It's fine. But I also I'd want to make them, maybe I just have to make clear to my players, this stuff has to be ascending. You can do a major heist. It can be 500 gold pieces at level 1. That's not cutting it at level 2. But I would just use some round numbers, something like that, right? So that it's just easy. And again, the reason why I like some specificity, whether you need it in the rules or just leaving up to GMs, that's fine. Because I want the players to be able to figure it out themselves. If I say a major heist, then it's like, well, what is it? Does that count as a major heist? Is this a major heist? I thought it was a major heist, but it's not a major heist. Whereas if it's just like, hey, you got to call in 1,000 gold pieces, then 1,000 gold pieces worth of stuff, and you've got it. And that could be whatever you want it to be, right? It could be maybe you go into the noble's house to steal 1,000 gold pieces, and you end up taking an urn, a tapestry, and something else, and there you get 1,000 gold pieces, or you go for 1,000 gold pieces in coins that's sitting in their vault, or some combination. All that stuff will work. Ian says they like what they call micro milestones, quote unquote. They've seen systems like Black Hack and Basin. At the end of the session, did you do X plus 1 XP? Yeah, those definitely work well when the XP numbers are lower, which you could do. When you're getting into thousands of XP, the numbers have to creep up too, right? So you could probably figure out what is the plus 1 XP thing for D&D. Maybe it's 100 XP, right? Hey, 100 XP. You do that 10 times, you got 1,000. It's not gonna. If you're really low level, that's meaningful. If you're high level, not that meaningful, but still every whatever counts, kind of thing. Fluffy the Griffin says, you get an XP and you get an XP. Exactly. So I do like some of the stuff. I wouldn't want to get into judging role play. I don't want to get into judging story. I'm down for I've done this already, given experience points for exploration. I'm down with that. Creating friendships, relationships, and alliances. Yeah, if I'm down for this also, because you can kind of, with their morale or their loyalty, whatever flips above a certain number, you can get an XP for that. I'm fine with that stuff. Sacrifice is something you can measure in some way, so you can do that. Risk, it's tough. Glorious deeds, I don't know. I suppose I'd want to. I just like where you can kind of, as a player, you can kind of see it written and understand what it means. Me as a GM, I don't need to know that much. I can figure out and say, oh yeah, what is a glorious deed to me? Okay, that's what it's going to be. But as a player, I might want to. That specificity really is for me as a player, less than me as a GM. And then we've got a sample stocked Labyrinth, which is nice. And someone was just saying, it might have been Daniel when I talked to him last week about games not including little sample dungeons in them anymore. So we get a really nice, really simple, standard dungeon in here. I'm not going to read through it. Maybe I'll do it as another stream. You guys let me know in the comments after this is all over whether reading through the sample Labyrinth here called Den of the Morlock Shaman is worth it. And then if it is, I'll read through it. But it's great to be there. We got some stuff. Oh, we got a town. Oh, look at that. A whole bunch of stuff. Horror world. So there's the mortal world, the savage world, and the horror world. Oh, I guess it depends how you're going to run this. What is happening here? Oh, interesting. So there's something I'm going to have to read this. Come back to it because it's kind of cool, the idea of this thing existing in kind of several kind of realms, it seems like, or several themes. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, Fairsex says it's a town that's been dimension split over 3 worlds. Wow, that's really, I mean, it's really cool. That sounds kind of complicated for a beginner thing. I'm digging it. I'll have to read it. I'm not going to read it now, but it seems really cool. Maybe a little bit overcomplicated for like a starter dungeon town situation. That was kind of what's nice about Keep on the Borderlands. I mean, not that it's the simplest thing, and they probably could have made something even simpler. And I know that something like what's it called? The 5e starter dungeon, the original one, whatever that one was called, was also fairly complicated. But the idea of having a town that's split, has been dimension split over 3 worlds, sounds amazing. But it also sounds, yeah, Lost Mines of Phandelver. Thanks, Ian. Yep, Phandelver. Complicated, right? But it seems really cool. But it seems complicated, more complicated. I like. I feel like if you're just a new GM and you're or a new system, one world in one dimension is complex enough. It might be complex enough for me, and at where I am in my life. But look, so there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, and this is just a draft. So where am I at? I like a lot of. I'm on board. I'm completely on board with all the kind of guidance stuff they're giving, and a lot of that stuff is in BX, right? A lot of the stuff is in BX. I haven't read through. I haven't done some kind of comparison. Maybe somebody will come through and compare where there's the guidance repeats from BX, if it's just a rewrite of it or if they add their own things to it. But I'm glad it's there. As Fairstacks pointed out earlier on, we've got stuff about playstyle, which is welcome. I hope that it filters out to the people who most kind of really could use it to help. Like I said, I see that with a lot of OSC people, and maybe there's a point where this will be released in some way, and the folks who are struggling with OSC and potentially with Dolmenwood too. I don't know if Dolmenwood does more teaching with the way it's written out the rules, and say, hey, go see, in terms of amongst where people are listing out all the resources for kind of getting some of the generic stuff. Hey, go see Labyrinth Lord. It's got same rules basically, but might give them to you in a better sort of teachable way than these. I kind of wish they would have gone further. To me, if I was going to ding them and say, well, would I switch to this from if I were using OSC? Wait, would I switch to Labyrinth Lord? Or what does Labyrinth Lord have if you're already playing BX? If you're already playing Old School Essentials, or if you've got the Dolmenwood Kickstarter and I don't know, you're feeling like the mechanics, the rules are a little bit meh. I would say not a whole lot. Yeah, you get a couple of classes you could pull out of there if you want to. Okay, the Cyclops. All right, brownies. Yeah, all right. Kyle asked that is the cover Stefan Poag or Pogue. I don't know if you pronounce it. And it does say SP in the bottom, so it might very well be. Does it say? It might have said who the cover was. Written cover art by Stefan Pogue, and so it's also Cyclops Idol. So maybe they did. Yep, so it is. Brian Smith says they never really heard anything that put Labyrinth Lord over the top or enticing in any way. To be honest, yeah, it was all Labyrinth Lord was always like it's solid, it's good, it's solid, right? Because a lot of the other ones, especially when you get a little bit later, were kind of more opinionated, I would say, like Lamentations. And someone was saying, hey, I just want something that's kind of vanilla. Then Labyrinth Lord was like, hey, that was kind of the pick until Old School Essentials came along. And then that kind of became the pick. But with this one, they've kind of made the point of like, hey, we can kind of be free to sort of evolve the system and whatever we feel like it's evolved in. But it's not that much of an evolution. I really would like, if I was going to say, like, what would I like more? Man, push the boundaries. We know there's stuff that could use some TLC and just a rethinking, like thief skills and like some of these things that are kind of lacking. Like, man, really go forward a little bit more. Push that a little bit. And it doesn't really feel like they did too much. Now, I don't know where this is in their cycle. They say it's a pre-release. Is this a pre-release and like it's a alpha, or is it pre-release like it's a basically done? And I don't know. No idea. It is a nice rebuild. It's laid out well. Things seem to be clearly written. I like a lot of the guidance. They're not. I like some of the I would say quality of life improvements. I like those monster tables. I think they should fix them. Each spread should have the monsters for that spread on it and not next flipping pages back and forth. I'd like a few things maybe organized differently, but I haven't played with it, so maybe in play would hit me different. It does seem very approachable. I guess my thing is going to be is that will the people who could use that approachability get a hold of it? Because or is it going to be hold on, I'm just going to show something, but I got to find it first. There we go. I was just going to show this before I leave. Bryce says big pile of meh. Yeah. Is it going to hit the people that could use it themselves? I don't know. But I'd like them to go forward, really push things out. Do things with magic too. Push out magic. Go for it a little bit more. I like a little bit of what they're doing, but it feels like a little tweak here or there. But it's like they're being really careful. It seems like a little careful. Like, take bigger. My thing would be just take some bigger chances, or put this out as like here's the final old Labyrinth Lord that we're sort of brushing on, and call this Labyrinth Lord 1.5, and then 2.0 come in and really go for it. Before I go, because it kind of came up a little bit, I did add this Dungeon Crawl Wandering Creature prep sheet to my OSE Dungeon Crawl cheat sheet project. You do got to spend $1 on it. I apologize for that. But if you've been wanting to do some prep, I created this for you. It's really simple. You can do this yourself, right? But folks seem to like the stuff. You could basically write your wandering encounter in here. And then when the turns come up, or you can roll in advance for your turns, put what turns are going to show up, put how far away they are, and put their reactions. And I just made these smiley faces so that you could easily write some reactions in there. So if you like that cheat sheet, this is there for you. Just thought I'd show it. Call it a plug. I mean, it is a plug. But if you made it this far, you get a plug. Anyway, it's in that same project. If you already donated something for the cheat sheet, you should be able to get this. It should just be unlocked to you already. Let me know if it's not. If you did. But, I was thinking about it over the weekend and threw this together. That'd be pretty good. I don't have anything else for today. I definitely got stuff coming on this week, including who I met a couple weeks ago. I haven't really talked about it, but I met I went to the city of Albany, New York, and met Drew of, what is he calls himself, was it Epic of Dreams? Well, the book is Epic of Dreams. His company is, I always forget what it's called, and I'm forgetting about it now. And he doesn't put it on enough stuff. That was one of my comments. Is put your name. Oh yeah, there it is. Agnes Day Studios. So I got to look at that one. Spent the kind of afternoon with him a couple weeks ago. Now went to a couple of gaming stores in Albany. Had sushi lunch. It was good to connect with folks. He lives, he's up in Saratoga. Anyway, I got to look at that. Got a bunch of other stuff, but I did want to hit this kind of while it was fresh. So this was a decently long stream, man. How long my streams are supposed to be? I'm almost at 2 hours. Goodness gracious, great bowls of fire. So there is let me see if I have this here in a way that's not. Oh, so here I mentioned their website at the beginning of the stream, Goblinoid Games. It is really bare bones. Like the news, there's not even specific. There's no. I would have linked to the actual news item, but it's not. You can't click on it. It says website under construction. I really would feel like, how long has this thing been under construction? Since like 1998. I mean, it does have a die roller in here. It does have something. You can make some. There you go. You could make some torch. They call them torch fodder. I don't know why they call them torch fighters. Call them torch bearers. I don't know. I don't know if torch bearer is itself copyrighted in some way. Anyway, you can create kind of or call them link boys. I don't know. Anyway, you can get a torch person, but there is a forum, and it must be kind of brand spanking new because there's nothing else going on besides the revised stuff. So you can go in there. So if you go to Goblinoid Games and you click on that forum link, there are places to comment. So please comment, because this is really a chance. If you're interested in Labyrinth Lord, if you're interested in just giving some feedback, it seems like this is the kind of the time to do it. This is now. The time is now to go ahead and comment so that we can help shape that's coming from Labyrinth Lord. I hope this means that they're going to be kind of reinvigorated, regardless of whatever they do with the rule set. They're going to be they're reinvested, reinvigorated, and they're going to kind of do stuff that's kind of their own thing. I really like Basic Fantasy did, right? Where they have their thing, they have their own modules, they kind of got their own ecosystem, and it's totally compatible with everything else. But if you just like Basic Fantasy, feeding you lots of good quality, nice stuff, game stuff is even better. So hopefully this isn't just, hey, we're throwing this out there and then it kind of vanishes into the dark. I know that's not what they're saying they're going to do, but I hope that they follow through on having a plan beyond just the rules, because the rules are really just the beginning. As much as I might say, oh, I'd really like if they did this or really like if they did that, really what it's going to be like is what kind of adventures, what kind of content, what kind of stuff like that are we going to use? Hey, look, towns that are split dimensionally between three worlds, I'm up for it. Maybe not at level one when I'm a first time GM, first time Labyrinth Lord, maybe a little dicey, but I'm down with it, and I hope there's more of that to come. Okay, I think I've gone on long enough, despite what Fluffy the Griffin would like me to do. Stream all day. So I'm going to let everybody go. Let me know in the comments, show wherever you find me, social media, Discord, my forums, wherever, what you think, what you'd like me to see do next. If there's something I missed, let me know so I can add on to it. Let me know if you'd like to see me read through that adventure with the village and with the stuff that did look cool. We can come back and do that. But other than that, folks, if you're watching or listening to this now, have a great rest of your Monday. Otherwise, have a great rest of whichever day or night you are currently on. Whenever you end up watching or listening to this, be good, game on, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.